And I think we're live. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for your patience. My name is Pal. Welcome to Conscientious Omnivore. This is my channel where I talk about basically veganism, recipes, gardening, and some ethics. And today we're going to be doing a live debate with Logan Blake and Jay. So I'll hand it over. Jay, if you want to do a quick few words about yourself and what you're about. Getting some feedback from you, Jay. I don't know if you have headphones, maybe put those on.
Yeah, I hear a little bit of an echo there too.
Getting some feedback from you, Jay. I don't know if you have headphones, maybe put those on.
Yeah, I hear a little bit of an echo there too.
Give me a second.
Getting some feedback from you, Jay. I don't know if you have headphones, maybe put those on.
Yeah, it's just a loop. Alrighty. Good times. Yeah. Good start, guys. Trying to see their video is not popping up for me here. There it is. Okay, never mind. I found it.
Is that better?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good now.
My microphone for it, but.
Okay, cool. So yeah, just
maybe get a little bit closer into the mic too. You're a little bit quiet.
I'm right in front of the mic, actually.
Okay, let me see if I can boost your volume a bit. I don't know if I can, but I'll try. Can you try talking now? Jay?
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, right.
And I think I've made you louder, so it should be better. Logan, can you hear him better now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I'm going to just jump over to the chat and see if everybody can hear everybody. Yeah, guys, can somebody confirm that everybody's volume is all right?
All right, Jesse says it's good for him. All right.
Awesome. Okay.
Good to go.
All right, Jay, you got the floor.
Okay. So what's the idea again?
I just figured you could say a few words about yourself, kind of what you're about, and or if you want to, mention any channels or anything, if you have one.
Well, not really. I mean, I happen to enjoy a lot of the content that a lot of vegan and in general the vegan YouTubers have. I watch a lot of it for a time. I don't necessarily share all of the points that they have shared, and in some cases I actually think that they have given a few words that may actually be misleading. But generally speaking, I don't have any. I feel like that is a bit of.
Okay. So I guess would you say that you're kind of like vegan curious? Like some of the things you're interested in, and then some things you kind of don't agree with?
Well, tell me if I'm wrong. The point of the vegan ideology per se is to reduce the pain and suffering that the creatures are able to perceive, right?
No, it's basically to try to not utilize them for our own gain, and basically try to avoid the unnecessary basically abuse, or really any kind of use of the animals.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm saying that, but what I'm saying is that it's mainly concerned about the sentience or the ability to feel pain of the creature to see whether it can or cannot be used. Or like, do you have anything against eating a sea sponge or a jellyfish, for example?
I wouldn't eat one. I mean, I think it would probably not taste good anyway, but no, I mean, I stick to the plants and the fungus. Like that's what I eat. Are you suggesting that is the only thing you would eat?
No,
Like
no, 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 no.
you would be
No,
okay with
I'm
eating
just
that, but
no,
not a chicken or a
no,
pig?
no, 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 no. I'm not okay with eating chickens. Okay, first of all, I'm not okay with eating fishes or pigs. I'm currently pescatarian. I don't eat any of them. In partly for ethical concerns, but I still keep eating fish because the only nutritionist in my area kept recommending that I take some form of flesh, even if it's from the local fish.
Mhm. Okay, and it sounds like you've already talked to some people, or have you done research to kind of like think that you need some kind of nutrient or vitamins or something from the animals? So like fish or some other.
Mainly the omega fatty oils are the things that I still have not found anything in the plant base that could get me the different omegas.
Mhm. So there's actually quite a few though. Flax seeds are generally considered to be one of the better sources of omega-3s. So you can certainly eat those. I pretty much eat those every day. Like I grind them up and throw them in my oatmeal or on top of cereal and stuff like that. Or you can put them in shakes like with fruit. Um, but you actually have omega fatty 3 acids in a bunch of other things too that people regularly eat. Like walnuts are really a good source, and also your green leafy vegetables also have lots of omega fatty 3 acids.
Well, to be fair, that's something I still would rather discuss with a nutritionist or do some more research before I can tell you anything about it. But either way, that was not the point of my discussion. The reason that I brought up the jellyfish and the sponges is not so much as will you eat it. It's more of as do you see any problem with people eating them?
I mean, I err on the side of caution. So my stance on it is that we don't really know exactly whether or not they are capable of feeling pain per se, but they certainly exhibit I think enough signs that in my mind they probably are sentient and they probably have an interest in living. So I think it's just better to err on the side of caution, and instead of trying to like vivisect them and try to find out if they can feel pain, I would just leave them alone. I don't think there's anything that they would provide us that we need that we can't get from plants, and so it's just why would you eat it? That's my take on it.
So if you were to figure out today that there was a type of plant that was able to feel pain and that had a will for a living, how would that change your diet or your preferences?
I would certainly avoid that. I don't think that plants are sentient. I don't think they do feel pain. But if you're saying that, concretely somebody proved it, I would certainly try to not eat that. I mean, let me ask you: do you think that there are plants that do feel pain or are sentient?
Well, okay. If we are going to go to say about a plant that has concretely been proven to be sentient, no, I don't think there is any. But then again, I also think there are animals that have yet to be proven whether they are sentient or not. Case being things like shellfish or jellyfish or sponges or corals or anemones.
Okay, it would be like it almost sounds like you're sort of like asking for permission to eat those. You don't have to ask my permission or anybody else's. You can.
No, I'm not asking for permission. No.
Yeah, could I hit on that for a second here?
Yeah, sure.
No, what I'm saying is I'm discussing your ethical standpoint on it. Like, at what point do you draw a line?
Yeah. So.
Or at what point do you define?
Yeah. So could I? Yeah, let me hit on that too. So when you look at a human, right? Have you heard of deductive reasoning? So if you look at a human, right, another human, say it's your brother, or, somebody in your family, they're exactly like you. You have a twin brother or whatever. You're like, that guy must be sentient because, like I know how I am. I know I feel pain the way I think. This person with deductive reasoning, you could tell without any studies or anything like that. You could just be like, unless you're in the matrix, right, or a computer program, that this person is just like you. And then you would go down the line and be like, well, other humans, must be very similar, like the same, the way they feel pain and everything like that. Then you can go further down the line and be like, well, look at these monkeys and they look just like us too. The way they act is very similar, and they have the same signs that they feel pain. And then you go down the line, more and more animals, you can see they all have similar attributes, a brain, nervous system, all these same things, the way they react. Then you can get down to jellyfish and all these other creatures. They're still alive, just like all these other animals, moving around, the way they act. And then you get down to like a plant, and you're like, okay, well, a jellyfish is higher than a plant. There's no need to eat the jellyfish. And then you could look at, even on top of that, what is a human's natural diet? And it's not jellyfish. Like, humans haven't been thriving off jellyfish for forever, right? They've been eating plants.
If we're going to talk about natural diet, it's also not entirely vegan.
Can you prove that in any way, though? Like, can you show me that it was a majority of meat through millions of years?
No, I'm not saying it was a majority of meat. What I am saying is that it wasn't entirely vegan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but does that mean it's good for you if it's just a tiny amount? Like, that doesn't mean that it's like your body's adapted to it.
I'm not saying that either, but you're claiming that vegan is the natural diet, and I'm saying that is not necessarily the case.
No, I didn't claim that. So I would say a natural diet would be like, majority raw fruits, then some vegetables, and then throughout history, people probably ate a very tiny amount of insects, and then probably meat maybe once a month.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah. So the meat part and the insects part is such a tiny amount that it's unnecessary for your health. You thrive off the fruits and the vegetables. But that's besides my point, though. My point was saying that was just an added thing on top of what I was saying. So if you looked at through deductive reasoning, a jellyfish would be higher than a plant just based off of what you can tell about yourself.
Well, the ability to feel pain and to have the experience of feeling pain, that's one thing, and I agree, a lot of creatures have that. However, I feel like moral consideration goes a bit higher than that. When I think of moral consideration, I'm thinking of action that has an impact on the society that I live in, but rather than that, I'm also considering the different, how can I call them? I'm considering the desires and the will to live of the person, and I'm considering how that will to live and desire may or may is affecting his life experiences. So it's really more than the ability to have a reaction to a harmful stimuli. It's more about the ability to recognize that you are having that reaction and to, in some way or another, have an appreciation for your own life. I mean, personally, I will draw the line at the point that a species is able to exhibit non-instinctual behavior. I think at that point it should deserve, or it should be worthy of moral consideration.
So you just kind of arbitrarily like pick a line, is that what you're saying? Like just based off whatever you think, and that's the way it should be until maybe somebody changes the law or something, right?
Well, I mean, if you want to be really pedantic about it, any line that we make is semi-arbitrary. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we should be considering the wishes and the desires of the creatures rather than just whether or not they can sense pain.
But how do you know what the desires of the creatures are? You don't speak their language. You wouldn't even know that with a dog or with a monkey, which are really high up, or like a dolphin or a whale. You know what I mean? You can't know that.
Yeah, let me ask you a question in a bit of an analogy. Imagine you make a robot, like a robot that is made up by, that has a string system or a remote control, and is only obeying orders. Can you say that there are any desires in that robot?
No, I wouldn't say that. If you're controlling it, there's no sentience there.
Okay. So if that is the case, then the robot doesn't really have a will either. It cannot really make any full decisions of its own. It's only responding to the environment, to the signals that it's receiving. In that same order of ideas, I feel like the animals that are able to do more than just respond to signals, but actually interact with their environment and show different standards of non-instinctual behavior, I think they're the ones that deserve in a higher scale when it comes to moral consideration.
Oh, okay. I mean, I would like to reply to two things. One is that years ago, and actually not that long ago, scientists used to believe that fish didn't feel pain, for example. And, they've since proven that they do, because what they've done is they observe them when they're swimming. They would purposely like harm them in some way, like cut open their mouth or do some kind of thing that was painful to them. They would put some kind of jelly on them that was like a burning sensation or whatever, and then they would see the way they would like swim in a stream, and they could see that the swimming was all like messed up, and they were clearly distracted by the sense of pain that they were feeling. And then if they gave them basically something that blocked the pain, so basically like a painkiller, then they would their swimming would return to normal, and that's how they proved that they could feel pain. But for like many decades, or who knows how many hundreds of years or whatever, people thought that fish didn't feel pain and they were just reacting to stimuli. So my argument is that you don't know just because, like a jellyfish, you think that it's only reacting instinctually or to stimuli, but how do you know that? It's because of some kind of test that you would do. And all I'm saying is give it the benefit of the doubt. Don't worry about it. You don't need it to live. It's certainly providing no kind of nutrients that you can't get from plant sources. So just why not err on the side of caution and leave it alone?
Okay. Well, first of all, I would really like to see that study. I would really like to read myself. So that I generally want to read it. But no, what I'm saying is that I mean, there are creatures that are conscient, that have a life experience, that have non-instinctual behavior, and that have some medical condition that doesn't allow them to feel pain. Yes, I know they're the minority, and yes, I know that in this case it's not really too relevant to a conversation. But what I'm saying with that is that when we consider what I'm saying is that when you're making a line, I don't know, I mean, it seems arbitrary to simply say that if you are part of Animalia, you should be given the benefit of the doubt of deserving moral consideration. What I am saying is that it's a bit more than that. Like, for example, you will expect things to have like some sort of nervous system, or at the very least some sort of connections, or some sort of like a nervous system.
So I think shellfish do have ganglia that are considered to be kind of the precursors of what we have as like nervous systems. So scientists suppose that those are kind of the equivalent of nerves.
Yeah, but at what point can you say they are doing something non-instinctually? It doesn't seem very likely to me. Then again, I could be wrong, but I'm just saying.
I mean, I don't know. Clams swim around. Jellyfish definitely swim around. I mean, they catch fish like with their tentacles. I mean, I don't know too much about it because I've never looked into it like deeply, but I certainly would think that there's indications that they're sentient.
I just like to know which sea creatures do you find like you should be able to eat? Like which ones exactly? Like all fish?
Okay, while I'm not saying all fish, I'm saying that, well, for example, if it was to be the case that you needed to take the choice because, I don't know, your digestive system doesn't work properly or whatever, I will think that eating a fish is the lesser of two evils when compared to like eating a pig or eating a cow or eating a chicken.
Yeah, okay. But like, I'm just wondering where are you drawing the line though?
It's complicated. But I will say
so
that
like,
you
eat fish though, right? That's all I want to know. Like you eat fish.
I eat fish. I don't necessarily think that is a moral action of my part.
Okay.
I mostly do it because that's what I have been told by my nutritionist, and I kind of need to talk with her again I need to organize my things. I need to talk with more nutritionists before I want to make any drastic changes. Well, not necessarily drastic, but before I modify my diet anymore.
Yeah. So, like, I'm in school for nutrition. I'm one class away from being a certified nutritionist. I could tell you that all nutritionists are not going to agree on things. All doctors are not going to agree on things. A lot of the research that that people should do is on their own, trying to figure out what it is they should do. So it's like going to just some random nutritionist. Like they could tell you literally anything. They could tell you drink milk and have 6 raw eggs a day or something. Like who knows what they're going to tell you, right? But I mean, even dietitians, their whole schooling system is sponsored by the Dairy Farmers of Canada and the Diabetes Foundation, which has all sorts of meat plan meals and things like that. So you got to be very weary about where you're getting your information from. But what I was saying, like, why are we talking about the jellyfish and the starfish and the things that are, borderline borderline plants or whatever you want to say, but instead of talking about the fish, because you are actually eating the fish, right? Like we're picking like the least.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe the jellyfish and the clams are not related to this conversation or the point about fish. I don't necessarily agree that what I'm doing by eating them is moral or is morally justifiable. But then again, I don't know. I would personally like to research more and maybe talk with some experts about it before I consider doing any drastic changes.
Yeah. So I do have a study too.
Sorry, go ahead.
Logan. First, I'll find this while you're talking.
Okay. I just want to add 2 things. One is that I actually recently saw a very interesting video about a fish that makes a really intricate like design pattern in the sand as part of its mating ritual. It creates this beautiful like shape, like digging in the sand and like using its mouth to shape the sand at the bottom of the ocean, and then basically like it just draws this big, huge, beautiful picture, and that's how it attracts a mate. And it's like really cool. You definitely can't say that that's instinctual. And obviously not every fish does that, but I'm just saying like as an example, it's certainly not in my mind a clear decision that like eating a fish is better or morally more justifiable or less unjustifiable than eating a pig. I think it's just because we are closer to them. They are land animals like us.
Well, it's not because of that.
I think it is though.
No, but I recognize that a pig has a cognitive abilities that are very comparable. I've seen studies that say that their cognitive abilities can be compared to that of a 3 or 2-year-old.
Yes.
So when you consider that, and when you look at a creature that may be exhibiting some non-sexual behavior, I mean, in the case, I don't know how to explain this properly. It's more like the cognitive abilities of a pig do increase, which does make it worse to kill the pig than it is to kill the fish.
Okay, but let me ask you this then. If I have a really smart person who's got a like IQ of God knows whatever, 250, or I don't even know what the highest IQ is, and then you have a mentally disabled person, is it better or worse to kill the mentally disabled person?
Well, the problem is that the mentally disabled person is not comparable to a fish, but
I'm not saying with the fish. I'm saying the 2 people.
No, yeah, but that's the point. They can both exhibit non-instinctual behavior, they both have life experiences, and they both have some sort of will to live. And I agree that the pig is also within that category of creatures.
But the fish does too.
Category and will to live.
The fish does too. In the example I gave you, it actually makes art to attract a mate.
I just sent you something on Twitter about fish intelligence. I don't know if you have your Twitter open too, but there's a lot more. Like there's an insane amount of things that fish can do, and it's very like. Sorry.
I'll get a read afterwards. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what I was saying though is like, I mean, first of all, people aren't living in the ocean and seeing fish all the time, which is a big problem, right? They're hidden. Their lives are kind of hidden. You have to go down there and explore, like with a scuba tank and study them in a different way than you would just see an animal walking around, right? And that's why people are allowed to get away with trolling with those big nets and just destroying the coral reef because nobody sees it, right? It's just all hidden. And
allow me to interstate here. I don't eat most of the fish that come from the ocean. I mean, the fish that I eat usually come from rivers or lakes. and they are mostly near my
Yeah, that's what I was
tilapia.
asking earlier, like, so I could find out what fish are you eating, like, because then I can't really argue against something that I have no idea what you're eating.
I will say mostly, um, let's see, trout, tilapia. Yeah, I think that
Okay.
makes most of
Yeah.
the fish that I eat, trout and tilapia.
Yeah, I used to eat a lot of tilapia. Tilapia is like one of the fish with the most toxins in it. And then you were talking about jellyfish earlier, like jellyfish, like just an extreme amount of salt in jellyfish too. Like, so they're going to be really bad for you in
No,
different ways.
I just brought the I just brought the jellyfish for in relation to a moral argument. I mean, if we are to talk, I mean, there are even things in the plant kingdom that may be bad for you, but that was just for the for the discussion of the morality of it, really. When it comes to
Okay,
fish,
yeah. So the thing I sent you, like fish use tools. Like I'm sure the fish that you just named, trout and the tilapia, are just as smart as these other fish. Like they use tools. They have great memory. They have great cooperation. They have all these things. And the way that they judge animals' intelligence is not accurate, right? Like you can't compare it to human intelligence and be like, well, they did the same things that these humans do, so therefore they're intelligent. Like a fish
no,
doesn't
but
need to do what a human does, or a pig doesn't
no,
need to do what a human does.
that's
They
not
need
the
to do what a
point.
pig does.
Yeah, that's not the point. But when they compare intelligence, from what I have read, what usually happens is that they take a situation that is alien to two creatures of the same species and they put them in that situation. If they will react like they react in the wild, then their instinctual behavior is still pretty predominant in their brain. If they start acting differently, then they are acting in a non-instinctual way because they're not acting as a biological robot, but they're responding to this new environment and they are analyzing this new place.
I'd like to answer something by actually going back to my question to you earlier about the mentally handicapped person and the really smart person. My point in making that question to you was that I want you to realize that the intelligence level is not something that is okay or acceptable to base like moral decisions on. It would be equally wrong to kill the mentally handicapped person as it would be to kill the really smart person. So all I'm saying is you can't use that to justify killing a less intelligent animal.
I think I disagree with you slightly.
Go ahead. Explain.
Yes, they are both wrong, especially because there is at the very least some society, friends, family, and people that care about both the mentally handicapped and the completely smart person. So, and that is not to say, and that is to say that if you kill any of them, you are hurting the family around them, you are hurting the experiences around them. But if you want to just look at the action of killing the individual, then killing an individual that has fully self-awareness and that has more of an appreciation for its own life, in regards to an individual that has no appreciation for its own life, while they are both wrong, I will still say that the lesser of two evils would be to kill the one that has the least appreciation for its own life. But
Okay, so
yes,
a homeless retard. You can kill a homeless retard. Right?
Yeah,
with no family? As long as they have no family, you could eat a homeless retard.
As long as they have no family, you could eat a homeless retard.
Yeah. Because nobody cares about them, right? They live in a cave. They're just a homeless, no home. They're really stupid. And you can just go eat them.
No, but they are still having some sort of life experience.
Yeah, but so is the really dumb fish, if they are dumb, which nobody knows.
Okay, first of all, I really would like to see if there is any human that is that has the same level of intelligence as a fish, because even in an extremely retardation case, I will say that at best is comparable to that of a pig, and I already agree with you that we shouldn't be killing or eating the pigs. So
yeah, my argument is just simply, my argument is simply that you can't use intelligence as the defining motive or whatever, that you can't use the intelligence as the line to decide on.
Yeah, but and there is humans that are dumber than fish, right? There's humans that can't do anything and they're just vegetables and you got to feed them. fish can go find food. They can use tools. Like I said, they have great memory.
Actually,
These people are just like, so you could just eat that person.
yeah, you're kind of pushing it. You're kind of pushing it a little bit. Yeah, you know, when a person is in that state, it's basically in vegetable mode. And it's called vegetable mode basically because they're doing nothing.
Yeah.
And that's why.
Yeah, I'm just asking you if it's okay to eat them, though. Can you eat them?
Well, I mean, I live in a country where it's legal to disconnect them if they haven't responded after a few months. So we are already allowed to. I don't know if killing is the right word here, but that is something that is already allowed per se.
Well,
So
I think there's a big difference between somebody that's not able to kind of live on their own or take care of themselves, and you simply like, you know, you end the life support that is keeping them alive. I think there's a big difference between that and actively killing something. I mean, the fish isn't dying on its own, and then you're going to eat it. Like you're killing it, you're catching it, and then you're killing it, and then eating it. There's a big difference.
Yeah, but again, it comes to a question. For those people to be alive, at the very least, they have to have some attendants. They have to have some people that care about them enough to feed them. So it comes down to the area of effect. Killing that person is also hurting all of those who care about him. And if that person is not being cared about those people, then I don't even know if it could be alive on its own, because you're saying that they cannot even feed themselves. So I cannot see that.
Yeah.
Animals
have families.
But I wouldn't say that you're killing
families.
that person. I wouldn't say you're killing the person in the hospital who's a vegetable. You're simply stopping to keep them alive. There is a difference. That's not killing. That's just cessation of the continuing life support.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah.
And you're saying that animals don't have families that care about them. Obviously, fish have families, and I actually have seen videos of like
some fish do.
If you put in like morning fish into
yeah, there are some fish like in the case of arapaima, or in the case of some cichlids, and in the case of some angelfish that do have families and that do care about their young.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a bit generalizing. That is not the case of all fish. And in a lot of fish, the adults wouldn't even mind eating their young.
Yeah, but how do you know that though? You're just guessing, though, right? Like you don't know how tilapia and trout.
I have genuinely seen the tilapia farms, and they actually have to take the small ones, the larvae out of the same out of one lake to other lake to prevent the others from eating it.
But again, you don't know if that's because of the unnaturalness of the whole thing. Tilapia are like in 99% of the cases farmed, and they're farmed very intensively. They keep tons and tons of them in the same space. So just like in a pig situation, like in the wild, they have very strong maternal instincts. They take care of their babies. They teach them all sorts of stuff. They sing to them. They have all these different vocalizations that they teach them. But in a factory farm, they'll cannibalize each other, and they'll like bite each other's tails off, and that's why they dock their tails as piglets. It's a completely unnatural situation. So who knows with the fish? Maybe there's just too many of them, so they're just going crazy because they're like bored, and they'll eat their young. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you're right. That could be the case.
I was just looking up tilapia intelligence, and it said something about intelligence, and it said stop eating tilapia. The most disgusting reasons to never eat tilapia, and it starts talking a listing about why it's really what I was talking about like earlier about how they're filled with bacteria and gross things. They are like, I don't know, is it bottom feeders or what they are, but they're filled with disgusting things. So I would stay away from tilapia for that reason, especially even if you think that it's moral. But there's no reason to even eat fish because it'll it'll potentially kill you, right? Cholesterol, saturated fats, and it just doesn't. I mean, you could talk about nutrition later, but I just saw that online. Just thought I'd share with you.
Yeah, I'm not morally defending it. I mean, as I said, I would like to do some research before I can tell you, yes, I'm going to stop eating it. And
so, it's obviously worse, like you know, morally to eat fish than plants, though. So I'm just wondering why it's like why you absolutely need to hang on to the fish.
I'm not hanging on to them. I mean, the entire purpose of the conversation was to try to see. I don't know. I was trying to see what the moral standards of something are that you are giving it.
Okay, so let me
Before
ask you a
say
question.
that
Why are you morally worth anything? Like why should I care about you?
Subjectively. Let me. Okay, so is it why should you not kill me?
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Okay. Well, ultimately, if you're going to kill me, I cannot really stop you. I can't actively stop if you are going to kill me. But, I mean, if you are able to empathize with the fact that I'm having a life experience and with the fact that I am self-aware and that I'm able to conceive of all of the things that can influence my life, and that plus, you know, being able to, in a way, feel pain and being aware that I'm feeling pain and being able to get traumatized. If you're able to empathize with that, that will be a reason to not kill me. But if you are not able
Yeah.
to empathize with that and you are to kill me, then I have no then I mean you will
So
kill me and I have nothing to do against it.
yeah, so like the big thing you said there is about like you're gonna feel pain, and then another thing you mentioned earlier is that your family is also gonna be devastated by it and taking your life away when you want to live and live out the rest of your life. And so does every other animal have those exact same things. Those are the exact same reasons why you wouldn't kill a fish or any other animal, is because they have a will to live, they have a family, and it causes them harm, it causes them pain
But
to
every
kill
animal
them when you could eat an apple instead.
I know it's relevant to a conversation and I'm being a little bit of nitpicky here, but no, not every animal has a family, and no, not every animal cares about where something happened to another member of its species. I mean nitpicky, but that's kind of irrelevant to a conversation either way. Yeah, I agree with you.
I'm just wondering how you're deciding that, though. How are you deciding that with fish and being like, well, a trout doesn't care, and you know, like where does that decision come from?
No, I mean morally speaking, I still have to analyze a few things about it. You have brought up some good points here, though. I cannot tell you I will stop eating it right now, but I have to look more into it, both morally and nutritionally.
I think that's a great thing to hear. I would also encourage you to look at some of the largest bodies of dietitians and nutritionists in the world, the American Dietetics Association, as well as the equivalent UK association. I don't know their name, but both of them have, several years ago now released statements that say that their view is that fully vegan diets are, adequate for all stages of life. So nutritionally, you can be, totally great and thriving. They say that it's okay for, pregnancy, infancy, adulthood, everything, even for athletes. So I think, regardless, like going back to Logan's point, regardless of what your individual nutrition person might say, there's 100,000 people in the American Dietetics Association, and that is their official stance. So it's like a consensus.
This could be a horrible misunderstanding of what I know about their position, and if it is, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be misleading or anything, but from what I've heard, I'm pretty sure that's a position that they said, I think it was in 1987, and then they also said they were going to reevaluate in 2021. So
there's a much newer one.
It's been repeated on their page, but it's mostly about for the duration that it's going to last. I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, there's a much newer one. I'm gonna get it for you right now because I have it saved. Give me 1 second, and I'm gonna get it for you, and I'll link it here.
Yeah, one of the things about about a plant-based diet that really says it all about health is that heart disease is the #1 killer. And the only diet ever been proven to not only prevent but reverse advanced heart disease is a whole foods plant-based diet, right? So that should be the staple diet if that eliminates the #1 killer.
Yeah, to reverse it, yeah, that's a fair point.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
I think
and
it's
then
but I
there's
think sorry. I think
go
it's
ahead.
fallacious to say that every animal product is going to contribute to heart disease.
Hmm.
It's not the case
Yeah.
of every animal product, but it is the case of some of them, which includes red
Yeah,
meats.
so
It
it's
includes
not the animal, right? It's not the individual animal and the properties that they're made out of, because every all of these animals contain cholesterol, saturated fats, heme irons. 99% of meat comes from animal agriculture, which contains 450 drugs pumped into them, antibiotics, steroids, hormones. Like there's heavy metals, toxins in fish like mercury. There's just an endless list of horrible things. And then not
when
only
it
that,
comes
they
to
accumulate pesticides.
sorry, when it comes to mercury, as far as I know, that is a thing of the the fish that do migrations, like the case of sardines, tuna, or even salmon, because they collect the heavy metals while well going through the
Mhm.
oceans.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's something
yeah.
intrinsic to every single fish. I know it's
Mhm.
the case of the ones that do migrations. I just don't know if that's the case of every single fish.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I would agree with you that there's going to be different levels of different toxins like mercury and how much, like these toxins that they pick up inside their body, like from fish to fish and area to area, but like they're still going to all contain the rest of the things that I named, right? Or at least five of those things, right? And then, they have no fiber, and, plants are way more micronutrient dense and contain more hydration and all this stuff. So you're way better off, eating that way.
The other thing that I would say about fish is that a lot of the reason for the different levels is because of bioaccumulation. So what happens is the smaller fish, they will get a certain level of poisoning, either like um, you know persistent organic compounds, things like bisphenol A, other things like that, and mercury. But then if a larger fish comes and eats the smaller fish, it now gets all of the mercury and all of the toxins that the smaller one got, and then the bigger one and the bigger one. So the most poisoned animals like on Earth are like the ones kind of near the top of the food chain. So polar bears, killer whales, those guys are like some of the worst polluted animals. And many of these larger creatures now, like they're they're actually when they get pregnant and they have their first born, like for example, like what do you call it, porpoises or dolphins. A lot of times they lose the first baby because a lot of the toxins pass through the umbilical cord to the baby, and then by the second offspring, like the mother has cleared a lot of the toxins, because there's really very few ways that you can clear these kind of toxins from your fatty tissues. So they either pass it through the placenta to the baby, or they pass it through breast milk, because in the case of the dolphins, they're mammals. So basically, like even if you look at like the Inuit, they have similar things, and they're told not to breastfeed their children because they have such high levels of toxicity in their breast milk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing too, like I mean, the last thing we didn't talk about yet, there's the moral argument about how, they feel pain and stuff like that. They want to live. There's the health argument, how they're filled with cholesterol, saturated fats. I could link you studies that show heme iron, which is only found in animal products like fish, will increase your risk of coronary heart disease by 34%. So there's the health argument, then there's also the environment argument. I mean, there's way too many people on Earth, and everybody can't just keep eating meat and fish. They say that there's going to be no fish left in the water in 50 years. The way they're getting the fish. I know you said you get it a different way from like a local stream or whatever you're talking about, but like there's not enough to feed the planet. So they need to find out a better way to eat to help everybody, and that's going to be a plant-based diet, because that takes the least carbon footprint, the smallest carbon footprint.
Actually, I don't know. I mean, it seems a bit suspicious. Like, for example, I imagine that you eat avocados every so often, right?
Yeah, I just ate one
Or
while we were
cocoa,
talking there.
or coconut, or cocoa.
Yeah.
No, because a lot of the fruits that make up a vegan diet are tropical fruits, and they're not really grown in the U.S. or in Canada or in the northern or really southern countries. So when you
Yeah.
think about it, I feel like, I mean, I could be wrong again, but doesn't you getting a proper diet kind of involves all of the contamination of the transport that goes from
Yeah.
getting these fruits from the equatorial countries
Oh yeah.
to the northern ones?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of a necessity. Like, I mean, I wish I would have been born in a better environment. Like, you know, humans originate from a tropical environment, and that's what food they should be eating, right? That's the optimal food source for a human, and that they shouldn't have moved to, you know, really cold climates, and that's because of overpopulation and spreading out and all sorts of other issues that happened way before I was born, right? So you kind of have to look at things that you can help. You know, like the first thing that should be taken care of is animal agriculture because that leaves the biggest carbon footprint, right? Then you should look at other things. I think fashion is a big problem. That's probably the second most problem for the environment is clothing and things like that. And I think transportation is about 18% of greenhouse gases, so that's probably that's a big deal too. I do jog to work and I jog to the grocery store and everywhere I go. But I feel like transportation of food is important, you know, for now until they find out a better way. And I do think that they should be thinking about that in the future and maybe, you know, helping that. But that should be like way down the list, right? That's what I think.
No, but at what point can you say that, let's say, you brought up, well, let me think. You brought up the example of at what point can you say that the cost of having the creature, again, I'm not really too informed, but at what point can you say that the cost of having a living creature there to give you nutrients is not
Kind of cutting out a bit. I can't hear what you're saying. Try saying that one more time.
like if you have to transport the fruits and the coconuts from all of the equatorial countries, and you have to give kind of a variety and distributed diet to the entire population.
Yeah.
At what point can you say that this is more effective than just having creatures that?
Yeah, I get what you're saying now. Yeah, so I get what you're saying now. So you're saying, like, what's the difference? Like, the difference is one's a direct victim and one's a byproduct. So, like, if I take a knife, like, let me just finish this. If I take a knife and I stab a goat, that's I just stabbed the goat and I'm eating it, right? That's a direct victim. If I pulled a fish out of the water and I just ate it, that's a direct victim. Now, to transport fruits or vegetables from a different country, you know, that might cause some air pollution. That's a byproduct, and that's a completely different.
Yeah, but I'm discussing that. I'm discussing the environmental effect, not the morality of it.
I'd like to jump in for a second.
Sure. Oh, what the heck? What happened there? Are we still live? Let me check if we're still live. I'd like to jump in for a second, and then he cuts out. What happened there? Are we still live? We're live still. Check if we're still live. My cat's knocking things over now. Okay, so he's back. That's good.
Okay. Yeah.
We're still live.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
So I'm just saying that, like, in the lowest estimates of any kind of reports that I've seen, animal agriculture always is bigger than all of transport combined. And that all of transport combined contains all the transportation, both for the animal products and for all the things you mentioned, the fruits, the veggies, everything. So, you know, you can just argue that the animal agriculture, if it was ended, you know, then you can go and focus on, like, well, you could be more local with your fruits and veggies and what have you. And there is no thing that says you have to eat coconuts or avocados or mangoes as a vegan. You know, many cultures around the world eat local foods and get all the nutrients they need without having to resort to, transporting things around the world. You look at like people like the Tarahumara, they live in Mexico. They eat rice, not rice. They eat corn and beans for like the vast majority of their calories. They eat an occasional, field mouse now and again. But they get like 80-something% of their calories from the rice and I keep saying rice, the corn and the beans. But, you can look at other things like the Japanese, they got like 60-something% of their calories from the sweet potatoes, the yams. So, you don't have to eat that stuff. So I think if we solve animal agriculture first, then we can worry about, how do you deal with the other, 13% or 18%, whichever it is, but it's certainly always lower than the figures given for animal agriculture.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. You have made some good points here. Let me ask you one last question. You are aware that animal agriculture, I'm not going to try to justify it. I want to hear your answer to this. You are aware that animal agriculture, at least indirectly, also is responsible for the commercial food that is available for pets. It's also available for, it's also in some of the acids and like stearic acid that is used in computers. It's also responsible for, in a lot of occasions, for the improvement of vaccines and modern technology. So I feel like animals, I mean, ultimately they do make a greater part of our diet and of our daily lives than just our diets.
Mm-hmm.
So considering all of this, will you say it is possible for the entire world to go vegan? And and fertilizers, that's another thing. Will you still say that it's possible for the entire world to go vegan? Or do you just think that at that point we should at the very least treat ethically the animals that we do require for things like vaccines and our daily computers and things like that?
I would love to answer this, Logan, if you don't mind, because I actually just did a video about the animal testing last night. So, Jay, I would encourage you to watch that video too, but I'll give you a summary of the video I did last night on the animal testing. A lot of people will point to that and say that that is necessary because, you're saving millions of lives. And I actually just did a video on this, and I explained how a lot of times animal testing can be misleading. It can give you like really bad information and send you down the wrong road. The story of penicillin is often hailed as kind of this success story. They tested it on mice, and then, they showed that it was effective, and then they went to human use, and it, since then has saved millions of lives. But what's interesting is if you actually look at the information about from the people who studied it and discovered it, they had other animal studies that they did before the successful mice studies, and they were completely like misleading. So they basically said they tested it in rabbits, and what they found was that the rabbits metabolized the penicillin too fast, so it was completely ineffective. And if they had just done rabbits, they would have come to the conclusion that this is not a good thing to pursue. It's not going to work, and they would have never like continued. They also said that if they had tested it on guinea pigs, because their metabolism is completely different than the mice, the doses that they were testing would have killed them. So they would have certainly assumed like, wow, this is just bad stuff. Like, let's leave it alone. And then they would never have discovered it.
Do we have any better ways though?
Yeah, you have to do human trials. That's like the only way that you can find out if something is effective in humans, is to test it in humans. There's tons of information. Check out my video. I put in some links and information that shows this, but there's some ridiculously small percentage. I can't remember it off the top of my head right now, but it's something like 5% of animal trials are successful when they go to humans. 5%. It's some ridiculously small thing. And you also have what's called the opportunity cost, where you might be going on the wrong path and either coming to incorrect conclusions, or there's other famous examples where they've caused great harm in humans. They tested thalidomide. I always have trouble pronouncing that. In animals, they tested it across many different kinds of animals. They even tested it, like through multiple generations, and they cleared it for human use. And when they started prescribing that to pregnant women to ease their morning sickness when they're pregnant, they ended up causing, it's something like 3,000 babies were born with horrific abnormalities. Their limbs never developed. They were called flipper babies, if you ever get a chance, like, I mean, it's incredibly sad. You can go and look this up, but they're called thalidomide babies, and they were like, you know, horrifically disabled for the rest of their lives. There were like 3,000 babies born like that before they finally banned the drug, and they realized that it was the drug that was causing this problem. And that was a direct result of animal testing that looked like it was good, and it sent people on this wrong track. So animal testing is certainly not a good thing to do, and it's not safe, it's illogical, it costs tons of money, and it's horrifically cruel to the animals.
Okay.
I just made a video about that too. I was looking that up too for... Yeah, well, it's not the whole video based on that, but people always, like in debates, they'll always bring studies where it's on rats or something like that, and they'll be like, oh, well, these people tested trans fats on rats, and the rats were okay, so therefore trans fats are good for humans. But it doesn't work that way, because a human has a completely different diet than a rat, and you know, they're totally different animals. So to say that, oh, because it was good on rats, it's good on humans, that doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense in any way with drugs or any type of food testing or anything. So I don't know why they do that. The only way you could test to see if something is safe for humans is to do it on humans. Makes no sense.
Okay, that solves the question about animal testing, I suppose. And how about you know, pet food?
Oh yeah, you had a different question too. Could I answer this question? So
Yeah,
you said, will the world ever go vegan? No, I don't think there's, like, in third world countries where people are starving, if those type of areas still exist, like, and you know, these people have no access to anything. Most of those people are vegan anyways because meat is expensive, right? And they have to, you know, they're vegan by default because they're just surviving off grains and legumes and things like that that are around and abundant. But if somebody had to actually kill an animal in one of these third world countries because they were starving to death, then, you know, you can't do anything about that. Like, that would be fine. But like for me and you or anybody who lives in Canada or the States, whatever, you know, like, that's it's completely reasonable for somebody to go to the grocery store and buy plants instead. And for the byproducts things that you were talking about, like, you know, like, I've even heard people say, like, you need the feces from animals, you know, from cows in order to fertilize plants and things like that. Like, just because they're doing that now, that doesn't mean they need to do that. Like, that's the same type of thing as, like, you know, people will say, well, if they made houses or these certain things out of hemp, it'd be way better off, right? And you know, they're probably way better off to use synthetic things than using animal products. It's probably just based off money and a business, and they're just, you know, they're trying to sell all parts of the animal in all different ways, and it really has nothing to do with it being, like, really necessary.
And how about pet food? Before I continue,
I don't think people should own pets. I don't think people should own pets at all, but that's just me. Other vegans might disagree with that, and they have, and I've debated that a lot of times, but I don't think anybody should own pets.
Yeah, I actually agree with Logan on that. Unfortunately, we have a dog. Like in my household, my wife had a dog even before we got together, so from years ago. But thankfully, we're actually able to feed the dog a vegan diet. She responds really well to it, and she likes it. So we actually feed her a vegan diet. But if you know, like, if she passes on, she's getting pretty old now. Like, we certainly won't be getting any more dogs. And if we did, it would just be like an adoption. Like, I would never go and buy a dog. I would never go to a breeder and buy a dog.
I'm interested. You said that. Wait, what's the other guy, right? And then you.
Logan.
Sorry, I don't. Yeah, Logan. You said.
Yeah.
You say you don't find it ethical, or that you don't like that people have pets. Can I hear your reasoning behind that?
Yeah, I actually have 2 cats too, so it's like I got them way before I was vegan. They were rescued. Some lady's house burnt down. They had nowhere to go. And I live in Canada, you know, Thunder Bay, where it's really cold. It's like winter for 8 months out of the year. Cats can't survive outside, so you can't let it go. You know, or it'll just freeze out there, and it'll probably just go around killing animals too, and just being all, you know, reckless or whatever. But like the Also, like if you bring an animal to a shelter, like 70% of cats will just get the lethal injection, right? You know, and they won't even get adopted, and so they'll just get there's no winning, right? So I have these two cats I'm kind of stuck with, and then I decided to go vegan like 2.5 years ago. And during that 2.5 years, I kind of realized that pet ownership is a thing that people shouldn't be doing. And I just think it's immoral for a lot of reasons. Like you're basically having to chop the animal's genitals off. You know, that's neutering and stuff like that. Like that's obviously they're not consenting to have that. I don't think that's fair. You have to for a cat should be eating a carnivore diet. I don't think they should be eating a vegan diet. So you'd have to support the animal agriculture industry in order to feed a cat, which is why I don't think you should have cats. You know, I'm kind of forced to buy cat food until these cats die. And then, dogs, I mean, it's kind of a gray area of like, oh, you cut out again. It's kind of a gray area, like what to feed them depending on what type of dog. Like, obviously, wolves should be eating a carnivorous diet, and some other dogs can do fine on a plant-based diet. And I just think that, like people shouldn't use animals in any way. I think it's kind of like a lot of majority of pet ownership is just for people's own benefits to have some sort of like a toy that they could show off, and there's all sorts of reasons why I don't think people should own pets.
And what about captive breeding programs that are done in some foundations? Like to
What do you mean, like sanctuaries or something?
No, like
Again,
there are animals that have captive breeding programs to reestablish their population in the wild, and some of these animals do include meat eaters, for example.
Yeah, a lot of those are shady. So like the whole hunting thing about how species are invasive and overpopulated. They're not overpopulated for them. Maybe one in 1,000 will be actually overpopulated. Like they're just doing it repeatedly to sell hunting licenses and to they thin out one species, then they thin out the next species, then they just keep going back and forth, killing this and that. It's human tampering that really is the problem with everything in the planet, right? Is like screwing up the entire environment. All these species are going extinct. The most species extinction comes from animal agriculture. It's like a tremendous amount every day because they're plowing down rainforests. So that's the biggest problem for species extinction. But then these overpopulation things are stupid. You can't even say overpopulation is an argument for killing something. Otherwise, I should just go to Tokyo with a machine gun and just start shooting people because they're overpopulated over there. So that's not a good argument to kill something. Why aren't they helping the animals instead of killing them, right? I know you're talking about restoring them, but they're probably having to restore them because of the killing and all the other things, the rainforest destruction and everything. So it's sad that they're even in that predicament because of human tampering, and it's almost like you're damned if you do or you're damned if you don't in certain situations. So it's hard to say.
Okay. I think I'll ask you one last question before I go. If that's okay.
Yeah.
So, for example, how in countries like Australia, red foxes, and no, even let's go lower than that. How, for example, Argentine ants and red fire ants are pretty much invasive in the entire world, right? And
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you said about the ants. What was it?
No, like Argentine ants or red fire ants, and a lot of insects. They do represent invasion. They are
like an invasive species. Mm-hmm. They're not natural. Yeah. They're not native.
Yeah, but they're not native to that area. Do you have, or it's not? Do you have would you say is like, for example, for you to kill an invasive species that is not local to the area, assuming you don't have the abilities to take the species and take it back to the area, to its local area, or to take it and prevent it from continuing spreading. Do you have any problem with killing the species, assuming there is no other option to help keep their population at bay and to prevent them from destroying the environment they're in?
I would kind of take Logan's stance from the previous answer. and basically say that it's kind of an arrogant position for humans to take, that we are somehow entitled to fix these problems. And oftentimes these problems are caused by people. So they're invasive species because they got either transported with a flight or a car or food or something like that, or somebody had a pet and then they released it in the wild. There's problems like that with snakes in Florida and stuff like that. So oftentimes it's a man-made problem, and it's a bit arrogant to think that we can just fix it by either killing them, removing them, or introducing some other species that will eat this one. So I think it's probably best to just leave things be. Nature will balance itself out, kind of as it needs to. The reason that Logan gave for the predators as well. So the farmers will kill wolves or like mountain lions out in the west, in the western part of the United States, because they take their sheep, they take their cows, and then now they're like being driven to extinction because there's just so little area left for them. Same thing in like Africa. It's basically like people doing these things, and then it allows for kind of this unnatural balance of like too many of a particular animal in one area, then they spread to another area. So it's mostly just like man-made problems, and then we're trying to fix them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it's legit self-defense, like if something's attacking you, yeah, kill it. If your house gets invaded with cockroaches, they're biting you and you're sleeping or something, yeah, kill them. But if it's like, well, there's this huge problem and it's in the newspaper or something, and they're like, well, these certain animals are overpopulated, it's really hard to believe it. It's really hard to be like, yeah, like 100%, I just believe everything that these people are telling me, because people are so shady. Like it's sad that you can't figure it out, and like that's a problem that should be taken care of in a different way, because I can't do anything about most of those things. They're just going to do whatever they're going to do because everybody just goes along with it. The biggest thing is the veganism thing, because that's something you could do by yourself and just not support it with your dollar. So that's a hard thing to figure out, the other thing.
Okay. Well, was really nice talking to you. I think I have a few things to reconsider and to read about and to become more knowledgeable about, but thank you for having me.
It's good, man. If you ever want to talk about nutrition too, like that's basically all I talk about all the time. Same with Pal. We just talk about nutrition. That's like basically our whole channel is just talking about food and plants and stuff, and we just watch lectures and things all the time. I sent you something on fish intelligence, and if you, I think there was something you wanted Pal to send you to about a study. I don't know.
Yeah, I linked it in the chat, and I linked it here in the chat, and I'm going to put it in the description of the video after as well. But basically, the position that I said from the American Dietetics Association, that was from 2009, so it was relatively recent. It was 9 years ago. And then Jay, it was great having you on. Thanks, and thanks for your open mind. I would just say too that I actually have a lot of information about animal agriculture as it relates to growing plants. So the reasoning of using fertilizer and the fact that you can grow plants without animal inputs. You can use either human manure or you can use just natural like composting and returning things to the soil. So doing like deep mulching and things like that. And you can do really great veganic gardening with no animal inputs. I've got lots of videos about this on my channel, so feel free to take a look at them and check them out. I've got like whole, videos dedicated to that topic. I've got several actually, so check those out too. And yeah, it was great having you on. Thanks.
One last thing actually.
Yep.
I don't know if any of you is interested. I saw this one guy that I was arguing with in a YouTube comment thread at some point. He made like a really long commentary about different sources, basically bashing veganism and saying that it's ultimately causing more harm than good. I mean, if you are interested, I could tell him to give me his sources. I could give them to you, and you probably could take a look at that.
Sure.
Yeah. If you know any, like if you know, like I noticed, like you were on a live stream or something. That's why I messaged you to do a live stream. But if you know, like other people that want to talk or do, that's all we do is do these discussions and everything. Like if if people have arguments or they think like, you know, like, oh, these guys are dumb, you know, just send them over. We're not yelling at people. Like, we're not yelling at you or nothing. We have pleasant discussions and they could talk things out with us and it'll be all good. Or we could have a stream again if you want to one day.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I will reconsider it.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
All right.
with that being said.
Well, thanks for having me on there, pal.
Yeah, thanks, Logan. Thanks for setting it up. Thanks, Jay.
Oh, by the way, why is your name Conscientious Omnivore?
It's sort of like a trick to get people to listen to the vegan message without being scared off by the title of vegan. So, I mean, in a nutshell, that's it. But basically, my whole shtick is that if you are a truly conscientious omnivore, you're going to eat a vegan diet. That's kind of the short of it.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, see you.
Cool, man. Great. Good talking to you. And thanks to everybody for being in the chat and hanging out. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you guys in the next one. Bye.